I'm going to start with a reading by Lynn Unger, who is a UU minister and religious educator and poet. And I don't have a chalice on me, but I'm going to ask Jen to light a chalice for us. This is called Breathe. Breathe, said the wind. How can I breathe at a time like this, when the air is full of the smoke of burning tires, burning lives? Just breathe, the wind insisted. Easy for you to say, if the weight of injustice is not wrapped around your throat, cutting off all air. I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe. Don't tell me to be calm when there are so many reasons to be angry, so much cause for despair. I didn't say to be calm, said the wind. I said to breathe. We're going to need a lot of air to weather this storm together. We light our chalice to honor our time together and to celebrate tonight the gift of breath and breathing. So I'm going to sing meditation on breathing. I think I did this at this past Sunday's service. There are two parts to this, the way I sing it. The first is simply breathe in, breathe out, which we repeat a couple of times. And the second section is when I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. And we'll go back and forth between those two several times. This song, by the way, was written by UU minister and music director shortly after 9/11, when she was trying to find a way of centering herself and continue to come back to her breath as a means of doing that. It's a meditation on breathing. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. I'd like to share with you one of my favorite stories to tell, which to me sort of gets to the heart of why we are here, why we're here together as religious community, at least in part, and why we're here tonight both for this Vespers service and for the sharing circles that will follow it. And it has to do with finding ways to connect with one another and to comfort each other, even in the hardest times and even during the darkest nights. As some of you may know, tonight or the early morning hours of tomorrow will mark the new moon, meaning that the moon will be fully within the shadow of the earth and in darkness as it begins a new cycle. In the tiny mythical village of Helm in Eastern Europe a long time ago, the people hated it when the moon was dark. They loved a bright full moon. When it shone brightly in the sky, it just seemed like there was celebration and joy in the air. Everything in the town was brighter and everyone felt more upbeat. Even the dogs and cats seemed to be kinder and more considerate during the time of a full moon. But when the moon waned and disappeared from the sky, a gloomy sadness settled over everyone. One of the village elders said, "We have to do something about this. We have to find a way of staying joyful even during the darkest of nights. But how will we do that?" One of the other village elders said, "Well, we could capture the moon. If we could somehow bring the moon down from the sky and hold on to it, we could let out little bits of that light on the dark, gloomy nights and bring happiness to all the world. But how do you go about capturing the moon?" Well, one of the villagers said, once I was eating a bowl of soup, and as I sat eating the soup next to my window, I looked into the bowl, and there I saw in the soup the light of the moon. It was reflected in that bowl perfectly. I wonder, he said, if we had a big enough bowl of soup, perhaps we could capture all of the moon. Now, the people of Helm, you have to understand, were known for being a little bit foolish, which explains why they thought this was a really good idea. And they set about on this thoroughly absurd project of trying to capture the moon in a bowl of soup. And their first step was to construct the world's biggest soup bowl. So they did so. It took them weeks to do it, but they put together this huge bowl right in the middle of the town. And then they set about making soup. Big, huge bowls full of it, barrels full of it, which they dumped into the world's largest soup bowl until it was full to the brim. Finally, it was done, and it was the night of a full moon. And they had also constructed a cover to go across the soup bowl at a critical moment. And that night, as they waited, sure enough, they saw the moon growing larger and larger in that bowl of soup until it was there all together. And at that moment, they snapped the lid shut over the bowl of soup and they started shouting in triumph. "We've done it," they said. "We've captured the moon. We own the moon." And there was great singing and dancing and rejoicing in the village of Helm all of that night. But the very next night, after the sun had gone down and darkness had descended, they noticed that the moon rose once again in the sky, just as bright as it had been the night before. And they wondered, how can that be? How can the moon still be in the sky when we captured it right here in our town square in the middle of the world's largest soup bowl? And they came to the conclusion that someone must have let the moon out of the bowl. And they launched an investigation, and they questioned everyone in the village about their whereabouts and checked their alibis. And they found that of everyone they talked to, everyone had an airtight alibi. Everyone except for the village rabbi, who they hadn't even talked to because he was above suspicion. But after having ruled out everyone else, they came to the rabbi and asked him if by any chance he had let the moon out of the bowl of soup. Well, the rabbi let out a big sigh and finally said, "Yes, it was I who let the moon out of the bowl of soup." And people were shocked. They said, "Why, Rabbi, why would you do such a thing?" And the rabbi looked at them and said, "Why? Because there are some things that can only be enjoyed if they're shared with others." He said there are some things that are ours to hold on to totally on our own and to enjoy ourselves. Like a shirt, someone said. He said, yes. Or like a shoe, someone else said. He said, yes, that's correct. But there are other things, the rabbi continued, that are of far greater value that we can only enjoy when we share them. He said, do you know what kind of things I mean? Love, someone suggested, and he said, yes, love. You can only truly enjoy love when it's shared with another person. And hugs, someone else said. Absolutely, the rabbi said, hugs as well. And joy, said a third person. Yes. And someone else said, and maybe the moon? And the rabbi said, yes, the moon as well. Only when we share the light of the moon with other people can we fully enjoy it. So, the rabbi said, I was the one who let the moon out so that everyone in the world can share in its great beauty. But the people of the town asked, what will we do now on the dark nights when the moon disappears? Won't it still be gloomy and dark? The rabbi said, that's true. Into every life, some darkness must come. Gloom and darkness are a part of life. But we'll just have to find something else that sustains us during those times. People said, like what? And the rabbi, standing there looking at the world's largest bowl of soup, said, something like soup. We can share soup during those darkest nights. And so it was in the village of Helm that every month on the night of the new moon, they would make soup and share it with one another. And it helped a little bit. They always said soup may not bring happiness, but it helps. So part of the reason that we gather together in religious community is to share soup with one another, either literally or figuratively, on those dark nights when the moon doesn't shine, to comfort one another and to express our love for each other. And during this time, when we can't be together in person, it is especially important to find ways of providing virtual soup for one another, to find ways of comforting each other and ourselves, even when we aren't gathered physically. And that's why we're doing these Vespers services and sharing circles, and why I encourage you to reach out to others, especially those in our Sunny Hill community, in any way you can. Phone calls, emails, cards, letters, texts, and any other means of communication. I'm going to share one more song with you. This one I offer as a prayer of sorts for everyone in the world who has been affected by the pandemic, for people in the world who have been affected by the recent storms and wildfires, for all the people who continue to be affected by racist violence, for all the people who are marginalized and oppressed, and for everyone who is anxious about the future of our country at this particularly worrisome moment in our history. It's sometimes hard to keep holding on to a positive vision of peace and well-being in a world that's so torn up by so much violence and natural catastrophe and the many forms of oppression that are on the rise. But it's important to keep that vision of a better world before us as best we can, and to do everything we can to bring that vision into being. This song is One Day by Madasiahu.
Sometimes I lay under the moon and I thank God that I'm breathing. Then I pray, don't take me soon, for I am here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more war, and our children will play one day, one day, one day, one day, one day, one day. It's not about win or lose, 'cause we all lose when they feed on souls of the innocent. Blood-drenched pavement, keep on moving though the waters stay raging. And in this life you may lose your way, your way. It might drive you crazy, but don't let it faze you, no way, no way. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more war, and our children will play one day, one day, one day, one day, one day, one day. Dare this will change, the people are the same. Stop with the violence, down with the hate. One day we'll all be free and proud to be under the same sun, singing songs of freedom like one day, one day, one day, one day, one day, one day. 'Cause all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more war, and our children will play one day, 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 one day.
I'll close this part of our program with these words. Remember to breathe always. Take a moment simply to sense breath coming in and breath going out. When you are struggling, breathe. When you are celebrating, breathe. When you are trying something new, breathe. When you are facing the same old challenges, breathe. When life is good, breathe. When everything comes unglued, breathe. Sitting here, right now, gathered with people who care, breathe. Breathe in the peace of this moment. Breathe out the love that longs to be unloosed in our world. May we remember and return to this place of openness and breathing throughout all the moments of our lives. Amen.